You have to hold X on it.
Kind of
you can do it now.
Outlook for the field, but also
okay.
kind of allow him to get out of the pocket a little quicker.
Well, the action continues on ESPNU tonight as ESPN College Football brings you Colorado taking on Arizona State at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe. It all begins at 10:30 Eastern here on ESPNU.
Oh shit, they're capping the zone, dude.
ESPN app. How about Jaden Daniels, the Sun Devils quarterback, 572 yards and 2 touchdowns so far. You'll want to check him out. Coming up next. Well, that was a huge play on third down by one of the top defenses, not only in the conference, but the country, especially on third down. And now 4th and 18. And the ball game for Navy. Masai Mena with the completion, but short, and a turnover on downs.
Just doesn't have the route get to the sticks. And because of the stress on the offensive line, unable to hold up long enough for the receiver to get to the depth of the first down marker. It's a nice job by Houston's defense. They've played a great game. I mean, you hold Navy to 195 rushing yards. And, you know, I know there's going to be a lot of chatter and a lot of talk
when they
about
capture
Navy's inefficiencies. They've had more success in the red zone today. They got into the second half and kind of shot themselves in their own foot with a couple turnovers and miscues.
Time now for the AT&T 5G best moment from today. And Hudson, what's your best moment?
There's a handful of good moments, but I'm a little biased. How about Clayton Tune standing in there, knowing that he's about to get some chin music put on him and throwing a touchdown pass? I mean, you really want to send a message to your team that you're a tough guy. Stand in there when you know you got a free blitzer coming at you, and he's going to hit you.
Heavy, should have went inside.
In there and throw an accurate pass down the field. And at a time in the game where Houston
really he's in the air. What the fuck?
Like that.
Where'd he come from?
Tune was able to deliver. The Cougars were able to execute on offense.
I feel
like you said, you have to tip your hat to
have any good kinetics.
Defensive coordinator Doug Belk and the job that his unit did here tonight. And again, we mentioned just not easy going up against the triple option, and yet they were able to play assignment football. They were able to get to the quarterback, bring pressure, and come up with big stops when they needed it.
This was one of the best rushing defenses in the country, and they showed it again tonight. I know that Navy doesn't have, you know, the typical answer at quarterback right now within the program that they've had at years past, but you hold a Navy offense to under 200 yards rushing, game ball goes to you.
Well, Dana Holgerson and his team have won 3 straight, but more importantly, back-to-back victories over their conference foe.
I don't understand how this thing spawns, dude.
Yeah, they're up on us. It shouldn't spawn.
As the midshipmen slip to 0-3 on the season. Clayton
fuck off. I'm so dead. I'm so dead. So dead.
Second half comeback.
Ah, shit.
As they scored 21 unanswered, and that was enough, but it was all sparked by that.
I was so dead, and they were targeting me. What happened? Did they switch to you? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, special teams ended up playing a huge factor and a huge role in winning this game. Offense was a bit clunky at times. I think Houston has got to get better quickly.
Yeah, we can get supered.
Knowing how much time is left on the clock, but the Houston team that came out at halftime compared to the Houston team that went in was completely different. Hats off to them.
Ooh.
Big conference opening win for
I didn't have no fucking. God damn it, man! I was trying to get my super. I couldn't get it.
On the season,
28-20.
the final score for Hudson Mason.
We'll try one more time.
And the rest of our ESPN crew, I'm Tiff Green saying, see ya.
ESPN, celebrating 150 years of college football.
Most important innovation in college football.
So should I reset
the
it?
Advent of the forward pass. Until then, it's basically rugby.
Joe Namath, the man with the solid gold arm, hits Ray Perkins with a bullet pass.
There's this ingenuity and innovation in football.
When the game started, there was flexible rules.
It was the Wild West.
The trouble was, people were dying.
Innovation born of desperation to make a change to win, but what innovation isn't born out of desperation?
Nowhere have we worked longer or harder than in the design and construction of helmets.
How can we make this game as safe as possible?
You want to have your best players out there. If your best players are freshmen, why wouldn't you want to have them out there?
He's running over people! Oh, you Herschel Walker!
NCAA football kicks off today, a season that will end for the first time with a national championship playoff.
Clemson strengthens its grip on this championship game.
We realize that innovation has made this one of the greatest games in the world.
The greatest, presented by Xfinity.
Guys, I want to thank all of you for coming here on the anniversary of college football. 150 years, and we're celebrating the game that means so much to all of us. I can't think of another sport that encourages as much civil and sometimes not so civil
zone over there, though.
discourse as college football. I'm hoping most of this will be civil, but if you want to get uncivil every now and then, that might make it fun. So I want you guys to think of us as a jury. And since there are 11 of us, come up with top 11 in a number of categories. So there have been a lot of innovations over the last
my grenade only
50
did like
years
1
that
damage.
changed the game we love. So what about the best 11 innovations in college football?
If you think about our innovations throughout time, if we're talking about on the field, going at it, I do think two-platoon football.
It will block our choke point, so let's not go
Everyone played both ways. So the
through
entire game,
the inside.
minutes, 11 guys going at each other.
You had to play both offense and you had to play defense. You know, if you were a 300-pound guy, you would not be able to play 60 minutes. You'd be gassed.
Until
They're going around.
Substitution
They're going to the
rule
capture.
was only substitute at the quarter or in the case of a serious injury. In 1941, before Pearl Harbor, knowing that these guys are probably going to be
really hurt by the pillar.
At some point, they changed the rule quietly that you can now substitute at any time.
After the war, some coaches figured out, whoa, there's strategic advantages here, and so they started developing true two-platoon football in like 1947, 48. But there was so much concern about that, you know, losing the Iron Man stamina that it took to play. In 1953, two-platoon football was outlawed again, and so one platoons came back. Two platoons did not officially come back permanently until 1965.
Now you can concentrate on just being a quarterback, just your passing ability. Where before, you also had to play defense. You had to be a safety. It also allowed specialization.
All three looking at me. Outside.
Don't push too far out.
That really revolutionized the game was the advent of two-platoon football.
On to the zone.
College football kind of started as like almost a rugby scrum with people really tightened in.
There was really no lines of demarcation between the two teams. So the idea of a line of scrimmage was sort of to set the field and to set the ability of the two teams to go at one another to where you could follow the game as a spectator.
Bodied over there.
There's so much chaos and it at least keeps some semblance of organization. The line of scrimmage kind of defines the battle line, so to speak. Without it, it would be pretty hectic.
No.
Players' equipment has also made some drastic changes since the beginning of football. A far cry
It's
from
on
the
the
good
thing.
old days when football players wore a helmet of this description.
The modern helmet today is light years different from what it was initially. Early on, most people really didn't wear helmets. When you finally did start having helmets, they offered very little protection.
We developed a leather helmet, and the leather helmet did absolutely nothing. A leather helmet will not stop you getting a concussion.
The first really
gold
revolutionary
team.
aspect of helmet design was the suspension helmet. By having your head suspended away from the shell of the helmet, the shell would absorb all the blow.
Nowhere have we worked longer or harder than in the design and construction of helmets.
Because of
Dude.
what we've learned about brain injuries, the increasing research and spotlight on CTE, there's going to be evolution with the helmet to try and make that as safe as possible. I can't imagine football players today wearing what football players wore in the 1950s and surviving games. I think there would be a lot more severe injuries if players were wearing what they wore back then.
In 1913, when Knute Rockne is a player, not a coach, Notre Dame comes to New York and they shock Army using a radical tactic called the forward pass.
Most important rule change in college football, the advent of the forward pass. No question. Until then, it's basically rugby. And you're smash mouth football, it's too dangerous. It got the game away from just the big guys. Now speed matters. It adds speed and skill.
Stewart lets it go. He's got 3 people down there. Ball's up in the air. Touchdown!
The forward pass creates
Yeah.
a dramatic moment
Definitely.
in the game that really makes it a
That
1,000
happened.
times
What
more
were you using
dynamic and
for
more
primary?
gripping and more popular.
Nate?
Oh, I like
The highest white power thing I had was a pulse rifle.
What type of pulse?
Oh, it's an auto
Certainly
rifle.
The game has changed in a
Scathe
variety
lock.
of ways.
How do you not start with
How much damage were you doing to the head or to the body?
It has to start there, right? And
I
Notre
can't
Dame made
remember.
it popular, but Pop Warner is the one who really changed the game.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Heather's right that Notre Dame popularized it when they upset Army. But the forward pass really came out of the 1905 trying to make football safer, and they were trying to spread guys out.
For the public to see a guy throw a ball 30, 40, 50 yards down the field and a guy gracefully leap up and catch it. I mean, that's athleticism and its beauty, and it started to catch on with other folks that it's worth seeing.
For me, it's the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if it's because I'm a defensive lineman.
That's where you live.
Possibly. But I think the beauty of the game lies there, because you look at like the structure of the game to be able to identify 11 on 11. We don't know football as we know it without the line of scrimmage.